Good afternoon and welcome to Webinar Wednesday. We are excited to have over 170 registered attendees for today's webinar, which is eligible for 1 credit from the ACI. Let's get started by giving one lucky attendee a Webinar Wednesday lunch bag for answering this trivia question. As you know, today is Halloween. What were jack-o'-lanterns carved from before pumpkins were used? Answer now using the questions feature on your dashboard. While you're answering, I want to invite everyone to join us for our annual Imaging Conference and Expo, which will be held February the 17th to 19th, 2019 at the Wyndham Grand Resort in Clearwater, Florida. The ICE conference will bring imaging service professionals from across the nation for 3 days of learning, networking, and the latest advances in imaging. Details can be found at attendice.com. Okay, and let's see who the winner of our Webinar Wednesday lunch bag is. And it is Tim Flannery. Congratulations, Tim. The correct answer is turnips. Webinar Wednesday would like to thank our sponsor, RTI. RTI provides complete quality assurance solutions for all X-ray modalities and facilities. Click and go solutions for your X-ray QA. For more information, visit rtigroup.com. Our presenter today is Erik Wikström, Key Account Manager at RTI AB. Erik, you may begin whenever you are ready.
Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this presentation, which will highlight some areas of potential improvement when it comes to the efficiency in the diagnostic imaging QA process. I'd like to thank Linda and her colleagues for the help in preparing this event, and it's great to see that so many of you have joined us. The foundation of this platform is the Ocean software platform, which provides display and measurement data and also enables users to realize the efficiency gains in their X-ray QA work. In simple terms, we can say that this is done in 2 steps. Ocean Quick Check for the basic functionality of displaying data, and Ocean Professional for more advanced, customized workflow solutions. So I'd like to start with just taking a quick recap of Ocean Quick Check. It's designed to guide the user to a proper measurement with more guided solutions. All the modalities serviceable by the connected instrument is showed on the list, which is displayed upon startup. When you select the appropriate modality, the measurement window opens, presents values that are measurable with the current configuration. Values from the latest exposure will be shown in this display, and to the right, waveforms are drawn, corresponding units are shown below. The green ready box indicates that Quick Check is waiting for an exposure. On the lower left-hand corner, there is a toggle button that switches the view to a log view. Now, the log contains measurements of the exposures and will add 1 line for each new exposure. The active line is indicated in blue. You can click on a line and redo that exposure or add lines as you go along. When you do redo an exposure, the new data will override the old data. On the waveform panel, you will see cursors that allows to perform some basic analyses. There are 2 cursors, vertical, and 1 horizontal as well. To be able to zoom the waveform, you just click, hold, and drag to expand and provide a better view. So this is one way then of providing simple basic analyses of the waveform. For many of users out in the field, looking at the leading edge is quite interesting to look at and measure rise times from the generator, for instance. So this is one benefit of that. When we connect external detectors to the Brana, we've added the plug-and-play functionality to Ocean that reacts to changed configuration. So when something is connected, you're presented with different options to use both the external and the internal detector, or either of the detectors that are available. Then choosing the external detector, for instance, if you use an external dose probe, this is what you will be seeing there. Dose rate, and time in the display window. To the right, of course, is where the waveform lands. You can zoom, analyze that as well. And if you click on the lower right-hand corner, you will see all the measurements appear in a row-by-row log that you see it there. So this is the example for an external dose probe. You'll see corresponding windows if you attach mass meters or light meters. The appropriate window will pop up like this. And same thing if you have a CT pencil ion chamber, you will have the values and the proper units, the corresponding units appear in these displays as well. There's also then, if we select another modality for mammography, for instance, the possible, you can measure on different machines, and of course they all have different target filter combinations. And typical for each manufacturer, they are then grouped according to manufacturer. If we take GE, for example, you will also see the different models of Mammo machines grouped under each manufacturer. They then, of course, will have their specific target filter combinations, of which you can then choose to measure, to perform your measurement. Of course, you need to select paddle or no paddle to set the correct filtration level. Continuing then with fluoroscopy, if we check that modality that has some specifics as well, we then present the typical measures that you have to take from there. Looks like the one with radiography, but we've added exposure per frame, frames per second, and number of frames during the exposure, which are typical data that we'd like to read off a fluoroscopy machine. There we go. Also for CT, naturally, we have prepared different calibrations that are available. Different machines there, they have different tubes and different gantries and different optics, and of course they will perform differently depending on that. So there we have different calibrations for Aquilion, which is Toshiba or Canon as it is now. GE, they have two types with different anode angles. Of course, they will act and perform differently, so they need their specific calibrations. And the Straton tube from Siemens has a high filtration and requires a specific calibration to read the top accuracy values. For CT, of course, this is then the typical values. You'll see the KD, dose, the HDL, total filtration, and the dose rates, of course. And the displays, you will also see what calibration has been selected. When we then need to redo something, return to Quick Check, simply find the new Quick Check button, and you're back to where everything started. Now, that's pretty basic for any type of instrument in the X-ray market. It provides measurement values, and you can select different applications. When designing Quick Check, we were hoping to find more functionality that would guide and help and assist the technician in a better way. We added some features that are included but may not be so apparent. We have the possibility to save measurements. The whole complete log that we've done, that you saw before on the log file, you can save that complete measurement onto the hard drive. By default, it's a file name with a timestamp, but that can be changed to any name you wish to save it by. To change units, you just need to right-click on the unit, or if you've got a touch display, click or touch and hold for a while, and that's the equivalent of right-clicking. This will bring up a unit or a window where you can select the different units available in machines. So from gray and to Röntgen and derivatives thereof. Meter settings is one way of adapting to different measurement situations, where we can actually then change the KV range that's available. If it's from mammography, of course, it's set depending on the calibration, which corresponds to the machine type. But for normal radiography, we have different measurement ranges. One from ranges from 45 to 125, 35 to 75, and 90 to 160 kV. So if you know ahead of time where what kV setting you'll be using, you can set that in there. Calibrations can be set. Sensitivity, of course, may also need to be adjusted, or low level sensitivity as well. However, the normal settings, they are prepared for a typical range of products or measurements, and depending on the situation, of course, you can make those changes. If there is an external detector connected, those values can also be modified in the setting window. Options tab is where we can modify and change options that are user options, and how it works for the user. If we have a preferred modality, if we always work in radiography, of course we can skip that question, the first question that we saw in the beginning, and go directly into radiography. Otherwise, if there is no preference, it will ask and will present all the possible modalities that you can use for that unit. For position check, it's also then, if you want to use that, that's a good opportunity to check that you are in the right position, that you've positioned the meter in the proper way. Specifically, if you have a mammography, to avoid the effects of the heel effect. CT, where you have a very narrow beam, to ensure that you're actually in the beam. And also for dental, OPG dental, for instance, where you have a narrow beam, it may be a good idea to check that you're actually irradiating the detectors. So that could be a choice for the position check. If you don't want it to be automatic, there is a possibility to do those position checks by clicking in the ribbon at the top of the window. Then to the far right, under defaults, of course, there is the units for a dose, for gray or Röntgen. Those are the defaults that you'll be choosing. They can then be modified just by right-clicking, as we saw before in the display. Auto start with USB is if you connect it with a USB cable, which is possible. Most people use the Bluetooth functionality, but if you prefer the USB cable, you can then have it auto start once the meter is connected with a USB cable, it will then automatically start Windows Quick Check. Exposure Assistant is a help for when you're measuring fluoroscopy applications to be able to see where you are actually at a good spot when you're during the exposure. Confirm on exit is pretty good. It means that it's asking you if you want to save the measurements that you have. If you are exiting or doing a new quick check, might be a good idea to check those so you don't lose data. If you only want to use quick check, that means if you always want to use this and that's quick check is all you're going to use, that's where to go, where to select that. Enable favorites. Well, you can save favorites if you made some specific settings there in the meter settings. You can save them as favorites, and they will then appear as the first choice when you start up Ocean Quick Check. Always ask for save. Again, that's when you're doing a new quick check, it will ask you to say if you want to save the current measurement that you've made, or sequence of measurements that you've made. Fixed format is something we'll come back to a little bit when we're talking about more options and when it comes to exporting to Excel. Support file is another very interesting feature. If there is a problem making a measurement, or if you experience something strange, by clicking Make Support File, Ocean Quick Check will then package the background data that you've done, all the measurements, all the settings, everything in one support file, which can then be sent off to our support team. They will then have much better possibilities to help out than by simply making a screen dump or sending an email, an angry email with saying this stuff doesn't work, fix it. With this, they'll have a good way of replicating your situation and your measurement view, and thereby be able to track and trace and come up with a good solution in that case. So this is then also quick check, the basics of it, but we've tried to add that a little more. It's not simply a display software. We've added yet some other stuff. A simple report function to be able to report and show the results of your efforts during the testing. Applications have been compiled, and what they are, we'll see them, but they're made for common QA requirements in the respective modalities. Data export to Excel. If you already have your report templates in Excel, we can export the data into an Excel format. And there's some calculation capabilities built in to handle some simple problems that may arise during the time. All with the goal to improve efficiency for the engineer and for the technician in the field. So looking again at printing a report, that's typically what is the object of doing a measurement and doing a check of an X-ray machine, to print a report to document what is actually the status of the machine. Now, if we've made some measurements, this is just an example of such a sequence. Looking at the print preview button, if we click on that one, the software will generate a view of a report that simply looks like this. There's a logotype at the top right corner that can, of course, be modified and changed to something more customized. You'll have a heading, date, and then just the measurements as they have been made during that sequence. Test equipment used, of course, is then the serial number of the equipment being used to make that test, to have some form of documentation of that as well for traceability purposes. Now, this is then presented as a preview. It can then be generated into an Excel file, which can be printed, of course, and then given or handed over or filed for future reference. Applications, we talked about that as well. There is a button up in the top ribbon which says Applications, and that's where the applications hide. So if you want to do some more than just taking the measurements, this is a possibility then of doing some deeper analyses of it. Half-value layer with your aluminum filters, KVp accuracy tests, linearity tests of different kinds. And what they look like is, we'll take an example, the KVp Accuracy, click on that button, and this is what an application like this would be looking at. So here we've got the grid format as well, where we have suggested set KV values in one column. The column beside it is the tube voltage column. That's where the meter collects the data. The software calculates the difference in percentage in the next column. And we then, for that, have an analysis. This is the KVp Accuracy, and that analysis is done in the window just below the grid. You see there, it says the result is a fail because the maximum inaccuracy is 5.5% at 110 kV setting, where the limit is plus minus 5%. And that's why this is failing. So this is then a built-in analysis where with the tolerance is plus minus 5%. In the bargain, you also get the exposure data collected as well as the time, but they're not being analyzed at this time. So if this had been the case, well, what we would have seen here is that on this row number 7, which should have been set for set KV of 110, the operator here probably just set it to 105. We can then go back, click that line, mark it so it turns blue, set it for 110, which is the right set KV. And I'm sure that this would pass the test, and we would get a pass. We would then not be seeing this error that we've seen here before. If we want to see this in a report format that we want to hand back or hand over to a customer or to file for our own purposes, this is what the report would look like. Again, it looks like the one we saw before, but it shows the grid as well as the analysis section here with the plot of the errors for each KV station. And the result is a fail for this test. If we look at other applications or other modalities, mammography, well, they have other applications which are common. AGD calculations is quite common, and of course there are quite a few different variants of doing that, different standards of doing that. ACR have theirs, that's 2 generations in 1999 and the 2016. UREF have theirs. IAEA have another version of the AGD calculations. And so these applications are based on that, on those standards. And also with those target filter combinations that we have in there. Combo mode is an analysis of where you have both the TOMO and the stationary sequence in the 3D Mammo machines today, in which we can calculate the accumulated dose for these 2 sequences in one go. Half-value layer again is the same type. KVp accuracy is the same. Reproducibility is also the same as for the radiography. So these are then applications typical for Mammo modalities. If we look at CT, there are of course other applications for them as well. And there are applications for those modalities as well. CT as one application is CTDI, if you want to measure that. For CT, there's also application if you have a CT dose profiler attached. There's an application that helps you measure the dose profile of a CT in that case. Dental, of course, have a similar similar applications for those. Exporting to Excel, many users are still using Excel spreadsheets for their reporting, and so we built that in to this. Excel can be connected, or you can dump the data to the workbook if we want to do that. Send it to the workbook. Well, of course, it sends all the data to one workbook, the collected data. Connect to workbook means that we do the transfer exposure by exposure, line by line. We can choose to send with waveforms or no waveforms, and if we choose waveforms, this is what an export would look like in that case. So we've got the values grouped in columns in this specific order. And for each exposure, we have the waveforms, of course, beneath. There is, under options, we have the possibility then of having another Excel format, which corresponds to the same sequence and same order of columns as other manufacturers in the business. So if you have old Excel templates, by clicking that option, you can export to your data, and the format will be the same. The sequence, the order of the data will be the same. Okay, so you can reuse those templates to quite a large extent. So what would happen from here, this landing sheet in the workbook, you would then link it to your templates directly within Excel. So do that once, and that would be it. We're talking about some other features here. If we could use the calculation capabilities of the Ocean software. And we have at the bottom here something called normalized exposure. And what that means is that we can recalculate the dose measured to a dose at a different distance. We use the inverse square law. And this could be useful, for instance, if you come to site and you realize that you forgot, you left your holder behind. That normally lifts the instrument to 20 centimeters above the tabletop. By using normalized exposure, well, you can measure the distance from the source, the focal spot, then to the detector, which is the meter. And then you say that, okay, from this distance, which is the source, the skin distance, is where you would have liked the meter to be. And that could then be maybe 80 centimeters. Table at 1 meter, and the wanted position is 80. So you'd have source detector distance at 1 meter and the source skin distance at 80 centimeters. That would be that when your instrument would be measuring at the tabletop, but the data would be as if it had been 20 centimeters higher. Just recalculating it using the inverse square law. Comes in handy once in a while. If you want to measure a scatter, leakage, normalized distance is usually 1 meter. But there may not be a suitable position to place your probe or your meter at that point. So, but you could place it maybe 2 meters away or half a meter away, but you can recalculate the normalized dose by using this. So it's quite an interesting feature in that case. So if we're looking at that, the traditional measurement process that we're at, we're looking at exposing and measuring. That's what the instrument is doing today, and what we associate with dose meters from the X-ray business. But before we can actually get something useful from it, it's a longer process than that, actually. You've got to place the meter in the X-ray beam onto the tabletop typically. And sometimes you have to fix the cable with tape so it doesn't twist around or move when you're running the cable. Only then can you expose and measure. And what you do with it is, or you have been at least, make a note of it, pen with pencil and paper or post-it note. Take that into your office and then punch it into an Excel spreadsheet, export that to a Word document that makes a report, store it on a server, and send that report to the client. Now, what we've learned from the business in recent years is that, well, this is not very conducive to modern hospital care, where they're looking at more efficient use of the X-ray room than this, and also more efficient use of the expert's time. So this is not something that is enough. The meters can be accurate, but it's quite not enough. We need to have to meet the regulations and standards, and that's not enough. We have to offer something to improve the productivity along the line. And what are the goals then? Well, we have to maintain or increase patient flow. That's key. I mean, that's where the business generates. Reduce waiting time for patients. That's, of course, a consequence of that. Reduce the downtime due to QA work. If we can do that, that's also a big plus. And improve the service to clients. In this case, the clients could be then hospital groups or clinics, whoever is giving us the jobs. So this is then a suggestion of improving a process. Skipping a few steps and just going to place the meter in the X-ray beam, measure with a custom test, and then generate an automatic report. And that's cutting it down to and improving the efficiency. And this is the ambition with the software, the Ocean software. And that will then be solved by customization. And customization is not really what we're talking about when we are looking at the Ocean Quick Check part, which we saw previously. That is the standard off-the-shelf tests and applications that suit many in the industry. But here we're talking about customization to a higher degree. That will then be solved by the Ocean Professional, which is big brother to the Ocean Quick Check. It's actually then the same part of the software. It's a different license level. But with Ocean Professional, you have access to Quick Check, that's for sure. But you also have the possibility of building database of measurements that you've done to be able to retrieve and to track and trace and for traceability of that. And it starts with building sites for your customer bases. Each site would then have a department. As you see here, RTI Electronics could be a site. Department number 1 could be several departments. Each department has a number of rooms. In each room there's equipment consisting of an X-ray generator and a rad tube. And for those, the data is then specific. I mean, we can enter the data that for once and for all in this database. Serial number, type, installation date, etc. for both generators and X-ray tube. And then the measurements that we've been there to perform. And what would a measurement look like in that case? Well, it's, in this case, a customized session template. That's what we call it. Now, here we're then looking at this customized measurement that we're looking at. It's a session consisting of different tests. One test is a reproducibility test. The second test is an HDL test. And then there's a KVp Accuracy test, mass linearity test, and a questionnaire. And then after that, we'll look at those more. And the summary page we see here, we are then notified whether or not it's a pass or fail, when it was performed, and what's the status of the test. These tests then are have built-in real-time analyses. And if you see, there's a great resemblance here to what we saw in the Ocean Quick Check part, the applications in real-time and Ocean Quick Check. And where you see you have the set values, you have the measurement values, and the lower right-hand corner you have the analyses, the same type of analyses that we saw earlier, which is a KVp accuracy test. In this case, of course, it's a pass. The tolerances are the same, but here they are selectable. In this in Ocean Professional, you have the possibility of setting your own approval limits, your analysis limits. It could be plus minus 6%, plus minus 5%, up to 100 kV, and beyond 100 kV, you can have plus minus 6 kV instead of percentage, for instance, if that is the case. We looked at the questionnaires, and this is what questionnaires look like. So not only can we have tests and analyses based on measurements, automatic measurements, but here we can do questionnaires to see, whether or not it passes a typical inspection. Of course, here we can, if we answer incorrectly, then there will be a fail. We can have also a warning if that's the case. If that is not a vital problem, we could have a warning there instead of a fail to look at that. Now, after that, what happens is, and these can then be concocted, we can have all kinds of different testing performed. They can be done in different levels. The testing is one thing, but the real interesting thing is the report, and those can, of course, then be customized as well. This is the preview of a report for this this session that we just saw, and we've got standard format here, which is all the site information, address, contact details, notes, summary of what's been going on, is it pass or fail, and then details for all the other tests. What equipment did we actually test? The serial number of them, make, everything that comes from the database. Summary of that test, is it pass or fail? And then more details of it. What does it look like? Waveforms or analyses, graphs to help in the analysis and to shed light on what's actually going on in here. Of course, also for traceability and for quality purposes, you have the serial number and the type of equipment being used during this session, this QA work. And this can then be, of course, customized. So you have one type of report for management, a second one, a type of report, maybe just pass or fail criteria for management. You can have more detailed reports for whoever is in charge of the equipment, etc. So you can customize those to a large degree. The language can also be used in the report, can also be changed and modified as well to be able to use that. So this is then what we're trying to do. We're increasing once we're done with this is then customizability, of course. But this is then doesn't stop at the reporting. We're trying to increase the utility of the software here to improve the efficiency as well of the work. So not only do we place the meter in the X-ray beam, measure it with a customized test or a sequence of tests, which the session would be a complete QA job. We generate an automatic report. That's fine, and that's what people are asking for today, more and more. We're also seeing here performance monitoring. That is more and more interesting. The possibility of monitoring the equipment to such an extent that we can predict when something is going to happen, when we might need a tube replacement, or they have a degradation of a generator that looks funny. So they can predict and anticipate the need of a service or a tube change or a generator chain modification or an upgrade before it's a panic situation, and that saves time and saves downtime and also, of course, money. That is the possibility of using the trend functionality in the Ocean software, which is a possibility of looking at and trending on different values. In this case, we've pulled up a trend window for tube voltage accuracy, since we've been looking at that. But you can also look at HVL, you can look at dose readings, mass linearities to see if something is happening. And for each of these measurements, you see these points there, they represent a measurement being made and being saved in the database that we have. If we're interested in one of these dots, what's actually happening, if we point to it and hover over it, we'll be able to see what is actually the measurement behind that. So this is a measurement made a couple of weeks ago at RTI Electronics, department number 1, room number 1, and it was a radiography test, and the beam quality was tungsten with 3 millimeters aluminum. So if I click on it, I will be able to pull up that session, that complete session, and to see what was the configuration, what was the actual situation when that anomaly appeared. So that's quite interesting to save that in such a way and get trend information that quickly. Of course, by mining Excel spreadsheets or other databases with measurements, that is of course possible to find. But this is quite an interesting feature that we're getting more and more positive response for, and which helps our customers to quite some extent. And we hope that this will catch on also in the future to be able to improve the efficiency when in the work on the QA in such a way as to be able to predict problems that they're having. That will then reduce downtime, of course, and then reduce the waiting time for patients, which is the ultimate goal for all of us in this business. So looking at the path to improved efficiency, the way that we see it is, of course, the foundation being the Ocean software. The first step that we can take today is utilizing the Ocean Quick Check and exploring the possibilities that represents as an off-the-shelf solution. If we want to customize more, or if there is a need to do even deeper and more serious work, we can then continue with the function that they were having Quick Check and bring Ocean Professional to use, where we can customize it to a much higher degree than we have in the future, and where we have much more possibilities of this. So with that note, I'd like to finish off, and I'd like to thank you for your attention. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to take them now.
Thank you so much, Erik. Yes, we've got a few questions. The first one is, what is the license fee for this software?
Well, the license fee is for the software is actually installed in the meters as such. That means that the license to use the software is associated with the meter itself. So if you're an organization of, say, 5 people and you just have one instrument, you can all download the software on your laptops, which are most common, and use and share the single instrument that you have. So the license fee is, well, you need to contact the sales guys in this regard, but the license is associated with the instrument as such. So if you're 5 people, you can share one license for the Ocean software. Ocean, pull back a bit and say also that Ocean Quick Check is license free. So that comes with each and every instrument that works with Ocean, the Piranha and the KVp Flex, for instance. They all come with Ocean Quick Check. Ocean Professional is an additional license, but that's then shareable. Yes.
Okay, and are the features presented available for Piranha only?
No, well, this Piranha is the main unit for this, but it's also available for our rad and fluoro instrument, which is the KVp Flex, and also KVp Sense, which is the simplest of our instrument, which is just for dose measurements, basically.
So, has this been used in the field at all?
Oh yes, we've got many customers working with it. Of course, all customers use the Ocean Quick Check because that's what comes with the instrument. But we have many customers also using the Ocean Professional once they understand the benefits of using it and the efficiency gains that they can get from customizing their own QA procedures.
Okay, I've got another question here that's actually come in. Does the Ocean software work with other KV dose meters on the market?
No, well, if you want the waveforms included, that's only with RTI instruments that you can get that, the Piranha and the KVp. The software works if you punch in, you can enter the data manually and do analyses there in that way. And you can do that with any instrument data, of course. So in that case, it works the same way as you would Excel would work. The difference there being that with Ocean, you could anyway build a database in the same way that you're doing with an RTI instrument. So yes, you can share. You can have a pool of both RTI instruments and other manufacturers and still use the Ocean software and share the database.
Great. Thank you so much, Erik, for such a great and informative webinar, and thank you again to today's sponsors, RTI. One lucky attendee will win an Amazon gift card for completing the post-webinar survey, which will appear on your screen shortly. You must complete the survey to obtain your certificate of attendance. For more information about our upcoming webinars, please visit our website, webinarwednesday.live. So once again, thank you for joining us. Enjoy the rest of Halloween, and we will see you next time.